"You're in the wrong place, sweetheart. This isn't for people like you." Her voice was sharp but measured, the kind of tone that stung without needing to shout. The restaurant buzzed quietly around them, diners focused on their meals, some stealing glances at the unfolding exchange. The man at the table, in a crisp suit and diamond cufflinks, smirked as he folded his napkin. "I don't see why someone like you is even working here. Shouldn't you be somewhere else? Maybe a place more fitting?" The waitress paused, her hands steady on the tray she carried. Her eyes met his, calm but unyielding. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He chuckled, leaning back. "Right. Just serving those who can actually afford it." She set down the dish with precision, every movement deliberate. "And yet here I am, serving you." His laughter faded when she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a sleek black badge. The gold letters gleamed in the soft light. "Executive." "Director." The room shifted, subtle but palpable. Waiters paused mid-step, diners exchanged surprised looks. He stared at the badge, then back at her, the color draining from his face. "You're the executive," she nodded once, voice steady. "I'm responsible for this entire restaurant chain. Maybe now you'll think twice before judging someone by where they stand." He swallowed hard, searching for words that wouldn't come. She stepped past him, the weight of her presence filling the space she reclaimed, not with anger, but quiet dignity. The silence spoke louder than any insult ever could. He shifted uncomfortably. In his seat, fingers tightening around the wine glass. "I didn't mean," she cut him off with a quiet shake of her head. "You meant exactly what you said. That much was clear." He opened his mouth again, but no words came. She leaned slightly closer, her voice steady but low. "You see me as a waitress because you want to keep me small, invisible, easy to dismiss." His eyes darted away, ashamed. "But I hold the keys." "You think I don't have," she said, pulling out a sleek badge from her purse, the kind that commands attention without yelling. "I'm the executive director, the one who makes the decisions you assume you're entitled to." The air around them shifted. Whispers rose like a tide. He swallowed, trying to regain control, but the power balance had quietly flipped. "I suggest," she said softly, "you check your assumptions before you speak, because today you're served a truth you can't ignore." He looked at her, really looked, for the first time, and in that moment the weight of his silence spoke volumes. He swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know." She fixed him with a steady gaze. "That's the problem. You didn't know, and you never thought to ask." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. "People like you," she continued, voice calm but sharp, "assume they know my place. That a woman like me belongs only behind a counter, not in the boardroom." He looked down, ashamed. She pulled out the badge again, letting it catch the light. "I run this place. Every decision, every strategy, every hire, I sign off on it." A waiter paused nearby, eyes wide. "You spoke to me like I was less than," she said softly, "but I'm the reason this place even exists. You should have greeted me with respect." He opened his mouth to apologize, but she shook her head. "Save your words," she said. "Let your actions change instead." She turned and walked away, leaving behind a silence louder than any argument. "You think this is funny?" the man said quietly, voice low enough that only she could hear. The restaurant's chatter dimmed in her ears, but she held his gaze, calm, unshaken. "I don't think anything about your tone is funny," she replied, softly. "What I find funny is how you assume my role before you even know my name." His eyes flickered, surprise, confusion, a quick flash of irritation. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," he said, voice sharper now. "Why would someone like you be working here? Shouldn't you be doing something better?" She smiled gently, but her eyes were steel. "Better is what I make of it." He laughed, bitter and forced. "You serve food. That's what you're good at, not running a business." Her fingers wrapped around the menu. She took a breath, steadying herself. Would you like to know who I am? She asked. His brow lifted. I'm listening. She pulled a slim badge from inside her apron, a subtle glint of gold letters, Executive Director. The table went silent. He stared, blinking as if trying to comprehend what he saw. I own this restaurant, she said quietly. Every table, every meal, every decision. His smirk faded. You're kidding. No, not kidding. The room shifted. Nearby waiters stopped mid-step, customers' eyes drifting toward them. He swallowed hard. So you're the boss? She nodded. And you've just been served a lesson in respect. He looked down, the color draining from his face. Maybe next time, she said, voice firm but calm. You'll think before you speak. She turned and walked away, dignity reclaiming every step. The silence left behind spoke louder than any insult could. The man sat frozen, the weight of her words settling into the space between them. Around them, the restaurant's usual buzz softened into a hushed awareness. Waiters paused, diners exchanged glances, all sensing the shift. He cleared, his throat voice barely steady. I didn't mean to offend. She turned slowly, meeting his eyes. Intent doesn't erase impact. He fidgeted with his glass. I just thought that you could judge me by what you saw. He nodded. She smiled, sharp and quiet. We all make assumptions. The question is what you do when you realize they're wrong. He swallowed. I'm sorry. Her gaze softened, but her posture remained firm. Apologies are words. Change is action. He looked around, suddenly aware of the eyes on him. What can I do? Start by listening, by respecting, by seeing people for who they are, not what you expect. He nodded slowly. I will. She stepped past him, voice calm, but clear enough for the room to hear. And remember, power isn't in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply you respect. The man sat back, thoughtful, humbled. She moved toward the door, dignity lighting her path. The restaurant returned to normal, but something inside it had changed forever. The man sat back in his chair, his fingers drumming nervously on the polished. He would. The weight of her badge on the table between them felt heavier than the room itself. I never expected, he began, his voice faltering. She cut him off softly. That someone like me could hold that kind of power? You're not alone in that belief. He looked away, ashamed. She leaned forward, her voice measured. It's easy to judge from the outside, easier still to dismiss someone without knowing their story. His eyes met hers again, hesitance mingled with curiosity. I worked every shift, every late night, every weekend, she said. I learned this business from the ground up, not because I was handed anything, but because I refused to be invisible. Waitress passing by caught the tail end of the conversation and paused, glancing at the badge with a newfound respect. The man swallowed. I guess I never really saw you. Exactly, she said, and that's the real problem. He nodded slowly, the hard edges of his demeanor softening. I'm sorry for what I said and how I said it. Her eyes softened, but she didn't smile. Words can be repaired, but attitudes take time. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Maybe, he said quietly. I have some learning to do. She stood, smoothing her apron. We all do. The question is whether you're willing. He looked at her, then around the room filled with curious eyes and silent witnesses. I am, he said. She nodded, not with triumph, but with quiet acceptance. That's a start. She picked up her tray, walking away with the quiet dignity that had silenced a room more effectively than any shout, and in that moment the man understood. Respect isn't given. It's earned, and sometimes it's demanded without a word. The hum of the restaurant had shifted, the clatter of plates and soft conversations returned, but beneath the surface, something had changed. The air felt thicker, charged. The man sat at his table, now silent, eyes tracing the gold letters on her badge, as if trying to memorize every curve. A waiter passed by and lowered his gaze slightly, a subtle nod of respect catching her eye. She nodded back, no words needed. From the corner of the room, the hostess glanced over, curiosity tugging at her lips. Others followed, eyes flickering between them. The man finally spoke, voice quieter than before. "I never imagined. I judged you without knowing." She set her tray down carefully, folding her hands over it. "It's a common mistake," she said, "assuming someone's place by the clothes they wear or the job they do." He swallowed hard. "I'm ashamed." Her eyes softened, but her stance remained firm. Ashamed is a start, change is the journey. The man nodded slowly. "How did you rise so far and still keep your dignity?" She smiled faintly, voice calm. "Because I knew what they said behind my back. I knew the looks, the whispers, but I also knew who I was." He looked at her differently. "Now, not as a waitress, but as a woman who owned the space. You've made me see what I couldn't before." She stepped toward the door, glancing back once. "See more than the surface," she said, "because beneath every uniform, every title is a story worth respect." As she walked away, the silence that followed was heavy, not with tension but with understanding, and for once respect was earned without a word shouted. The man sat back, the weight of the moment pressing down like the summer heat outside. His fingers trembled slightly on the edge of the table, eyes locked on the golden badge she'd revealed. For a long moment neither spoke. The low murmur of the restaurant seemed distant, like a world away from the quiet storm brewing between them. Finally, he broke the silence. "I thought I knew what I was looking at," he said, voice low and rough. "But I was wrong. I saw only what I wanted to see." She watched him, calm but unyielding. "But it's easier to believe the story you tell yourself, isn't it? To keep people in boxes, safe, predictable boxes." He swallowed hard, the truth settling like stones in his chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, almost pleading. She smiled faintly. "Because I wanted you to see for yourself, because real respect can't be forced. It has to be earned." The man looked down, shame coloring his cheeks. "I'm sorry. For every assumption, every sneer." Her eyes softened, but there was no rush to forgive. "Sorry is a beginning," she said, "not the destination." She stood and adjusted her apron. "I've worked hard for every step. Nights filled with spreadsheets, mornings in meetings, days filled with decisions that shape this very place." His gaze followed her, understanding dawning. "You didn't just serve meals," he murmured. "No," she replied, voice steady. "I serve vision, leadership, change." He exhaled slowly, the walls of his prejudice crumbling brick by brick. "What can I do?" he asked, voice barely audible. "Start by listening," she said, "then by learning, and finally by respecting." He nodded. "I will. Thank you." She smiled, a quiet, powerful curve of lips that said more than any words. As she walked away, the room seemed to breathe again. Not relief, not celebration, but the beginning of something real. A lesson delivered, not shouted. A dignity reclaimed, not demanded, and a man humbled, forever changed. The restaurant had settled into a quiet rhythm, but the man remained seated, eyes tracing the edge of the badge she had shown him. The weight of the moment hung between them, unspoken but heavy. He cleared his throat, voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought much about who was behind the counter. Just assumed." She raised a hand slightly, stopping him. "Assumptions are easy," she said softly. "They're like walls we build to keep the unfamiliar out, but those walls keep us trapped too." He nodded slowly, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Did you ever wonder why people like me work so hard just to be seen?" she asked. He looked down, ashamed. "No, I was too busy judging." Her gaze softened. "It's not too late to change that." He sighed, rubbing his hands together. How do you carry it? The looks, the whispers. She smiled faintly. With purpose. Every challenge fuels the fire to prove them wrong. The man glanced around. I've been blind to so much. She nodded. Blindness isn't permanent if you choose to open your eyes. He looked up, meeting her gaze with a newfound respect. I want to learn, to see better, to respect properly. She reached out, briefly touching his hand, a gesture both gentle and firm. That's how change begins. Around them, waiters resumed their work, diners quietly watching the exchange with softened expressions. She stepped back, voice steady. Remember this moment, not because you were corrected, but because you were shown the truth. He sat silently, absorbing the weight of her words. As she walked away, the room held its breath, witnessing not just a confrontation, but a transformation. No loud apologies, no shouting, just dignity spoken in calm conviction. The man sat motionless for a moment, the weight of what he'd just witnessed pressing on him like a stone. Around them, the soft murmur of the restaurant seemed distant, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Finally, he spoke, voice low and hesitant. I never thought about what it means to be invisible. I just assumed. She met his gaze steadily. Assuming is easy. Facing the truth takes courage. He swallowed, eyes flickering with a mix of shame and realization. How do you stay strong through it all? Her voice softened but remained firm. By knowing that every step I take forward isn't just for me, but for those who were told to stay quiet. He nodded slowly, a new respect settling in his eyes. I'm sorry for my ignorance, for judging you without knowing. Her gaze didn't waver. Apologies are words. Change is action. He looked around at the patrons, some watching quietly, others processing what they'd overheard. What can I do to make it right? He asked. She gave a faint smile. Start by listening. Really listening. And then by respecting. He reached out hesitantly. Thank you. She stepped away, dignity reclaiming her every movement. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the beginning of understanding, and sometimes that's louder than any shout. The restaurant buzzed softly, but the atmosphere had changed. The man sat quietly, the edges of his anger softened by the weight of truth. He looked up, eyes meeting hers with a new kind of respect. I've never been challenged like this before. She smiled, not with triumph, but calm assurance. Change doesn't come from shouting louder, it comes from listening deeper. He nodded slowly. I want to be better. She stepped toward the door, pausing briefly. Then start by seeing everyone, not just what you expect. As she walked away, the room seemed to breathe easier. Conversations resumed, but with gentler tones. The man sat back, the lesson settled. Deep inside, sometimes power isn't loud. It's the quiet that makes the biggest difference, and in that moment, respect was reclaimed, not demanded. He folded his hands, eyes fixed on the badge she'd shown. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning, end.